Hey, welcome everybody. Here we go, as I see a lot of people saying in the chat. Thomas, James, Josh, I see several of you. So you guys can see I got a special guest with us for this stream, Mr. Michael Pavlovich. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Doing good. All right. Well, thank you for being a part of this. So Michael and I are going to show you actually 2021.7 today. So I definitely want you guys to get buckled up for some exciting stuff. This version for me is really like a tweaking and discovery version. And you're going to see what I mean by that as we go through this stream today. This is really going to give you guys the ability as artists to not obviously just create the way we do, but you're going to see some tools here that are going to allow you to make changes and tweak things that you've already done on a sculpt, which is really cool. And then things of like figuring out, discovering wise, where do you want things to live within your scene or within your character. You're going to see some really cool tools here that's really going to open this up for you all to allow this new type of workflow. And that's why I'm calling this version the tweak and discovery version, as I'm calling it right now. All right. So again, we're going to be showing you today 2021.7, and we're going to be going back and forth a lot with Michael and I. And as always, throw whatever things you want to put in the chat. We'll do our best to answer what we can answer, okay? And also, we'll be going back and forth. Michael and I might be throwing some chats in there. We'll have other people within Pixologic in the chat as well. So there'll be some things maybe we won't be able to answer for you at that time, because it might be even something that we're going to show. So you definitely want to stay if you can for the whole stream, because we've got some really cool stuff here from segment to segment as Michael and I bounce back and forth. So I'm excited again, Michael, to have you here. It's going to be good times. Yes. I think this is my first stream with you, isn't it?
Yeah, you and just me and Paul only. I think it is.
Yeah, because you did one with Joseph in the past, but not with.
And me. I did one with you and Joseph. So yeah, this is just me and Paul this time.
Yeah, yeah. So we're really excited for this. So let's get going. Let's see what I mean by why we're calling this version for me a discovery and tweaking version for us. So let's throw some. Let's get into ZBrush here and show you guys what you're going to have the ability to do. And as we go forward here, Michael, when I'm talking, Michael will be looking at the chat, and then when Michael's talking, I'll be looking at the chat. So you guys can go ahead and, again, we'll try and answer what we can. The chat sometimes goes pretty fast for us, right? So the first thing I want to start with is, okay, so we've got this character. I got this little cute little dragon. So I want to start putting some scales on his arm as an example, right? So I'm going to him and start just using the VDM brushes that some of you might be using. You know, you start, in essence, like I said, you start figuring out where you want the scales to live, where do you want them to go, right? On the character, maybe you switch to the arm, and you start laying these down, right? And I'm sure we've all ran into this. Like there's a point where maybe, hey, I didn't really get the stroke, the depth maybe that I wanted, or anything I want. So what we're going to have now is I'm going to just put one here on the hand, right? So I'm going to dock this stroke palette, okay? And we're going to give you something new. So again, I'm going to just put the scale here in the hand. Now you have an AdjustLast slider. So you guys are actually going to be able, I can actually get rid of that sculpt. I can push that out. I can go the opposite. So this is evaluating the last stroke that I made. And when I say stroke, I mean everything. I'm going to show you this. This is actually, you combine this with some other features within ZBrush, it becomes really powerful. Okay. So what I mean by that, let's throw some paint on this too. All right. So I'm just going to pick his chest color so that when we now draw out in here, right, I don't want just this. I'm going to throw some RGB on this as well. So we get some paint, right? And then you'll see the adjust also is controlling the paint. And this is going to be great. So I think a great addition for some people with 3D printing. Maybe you want to push that last stroke you just made, right? And it's going to live here by the replay last, just because it's relating to that. You're affecting and adjusting that last stroke, right? Which is really cool. Now, it doesn't end there, though. This is where I think the really cool thing is, and why I keep saying this. Okay, I drew a bunch of scales on his arms here, right? So obviously, I have my states here of me drawing all this to the point where we can go all the way back to where there's no scales, right? And we can see everything that I've done. Now is I'm going to hold the control key. I'm going to tap on this undo marker, the very first one. So you can see I have 1 of 16 right now. And then I'm going to go all the way back, okay, to where we were. And then you'll see our undo is now sitting here. I'm going to do my handy dandy magnifier, right? And then you'll see the first undo now has got a gray marker. So now when I go and do my adjust last, you see every single stroke is adjusting. Actually, it's not just about the last stroke you made. It's every single stroke you made within the last strokes that you've done, right? So you as the user have the power to go back 20 undos, 10 undos, 5 undos, whatever number of the undos that you have here, you're going to be able to use this. So this opens up even more items for us. It's really, really powerful to be able to have this ability to go and tweak these strokes. And maybe I didn't, right, push this out enough for me. Maybe I want those scales to parm a little bit more like they are now, right? This is really great. And then if you don't want that undo marker anymore, again, you just hold control and then you tap, okay? And then we'll get rid of that. And you'll see now if I cycle through, we're back to where I just was. And now there's undo marker. So like I say, we're adjusting the paint, we're adjusting the sculpt, but you also, besides that, okay, you're going to have the ability to even adjust other things, i.e. if I put a mask on his belly, that's beautiful, right? I can, because that was the last stroke, see I'm adjusting and I'm pushing the mask more, and then I can actually get rid of the mask, right? So I can actually play with the mask intensity after the fact, right? And this is, again, what this is about. It's about I want to make some adjustments and tweaks to this last stroke that I did, okay? And we're definitely going to be constantly showing other ways to keep using this. So already we've got the ability to adjust any paint, any sculpt, and any mask we're doing. You guys can adjust the very last stroke, or like I just showed you again, we're using the undo history to do stuff like that, right? So that is very powerful. And again, we'll be using it. I want to show something else as well. So this is a little sneak of stream this Friday. I'm also going to stream just me. I'm going to remake this in front of you all and for you all this Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Los Angeles time. So if you want to join me for that stream, I'm again going to be showing 2021.7, but I'm going to show you the many things that I use in this version to get to this. I call on it the helipad truck, right? Coming up with names, okay, for it. So I'm going to now say, let's go and look at, say, this little cockpit part up here, right? I'm going to say, all right, let's put something here. Let's switch to a different brush. I'm a big fan of these chisel brushes, okay? And I'm going to say, all right, let's do a nice line right here, okay? I'm going to put a little something right there. And then I'm going to do a smaller one right there, okay? And then now what we've also done is we've got an interpolate, okay? So when I press this, ZBrush is actually looking at the first stroke and the second stroke you made, and we are now drawing all the strokes for you between those two strokes, and we're interpolating. That's why it's called interpolating. So you can see it's actually changing in size for me, okay? And I have the ability to say how many of these interpolated strokes do I want in between that first and second stroke. So in essence, you're going to see, I'm going to show you a couple more examples here. And the slider right next to this interpolate, where it tells you how many more strokes in that first and last stroke, okay? It's working sculpturally, right? So this is nice, okay? So I'm going to switch to something else because I'm sure some people are already thinking this. Let's switch to an insert mesh brush, okay? So let's grab, I'm a big fan. I use this one a lot. Let's use our model kit one. Let's take this circular piece here. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's go ahead and let's put one right here. And then I'm going to put another one here. And in fact, I made it smaller as well. And then I'm going to interpolate, right? And then ZBrush is going to look at that and give me the rest of them. And they're scaling down just like the brush stroke was scaling down, right? So I'm having the power to draw one, draw another, and then let ZBrush take care of the rest for me, right? So this can come in really, really handy for a lot, like for me, throwing some patterns on here and things like that. But it's not just even about that. Look at it in another scenario. Let's grab the snake hook. I just want plain old regular snake hook, okay? And let's gear to the top and look at just from this position so we can see what we're doing here. Bigger and brush. Yeah, let's go. Okay, and I'm going to say, all right, let's make a, let's clear our mask. Let's make a stroke here. And then I'm going to go, again, a little bit smaller and make a stroke there. And then this time, I'm going to come over here and say, let's do 20 interpolations in between instead of 10. And then, boom, ZBrush takes care of, even again, with something like this, I can grab the snake hook and create some really unique, different designs here, right? So you really have some really powerful tools. Again, right? This is all about out and looking at and discovering stuff, right? And I am going to encourage you all, once you guys get this version, is, you know, do some playing with this, right? And then interpolate that and see what you get, right? And see, this is actually going from the tall all the way to the low one, right? So you can do some fun stuff with this interpolate, right? Again, we have the power, you have the power. So let's go back to, you have the power not only to just go stroke one, right, and stroke two, and then change your interpolated strokes, okay? But I'm going to show you something else here that you, all right? I'm so visually, I'm just going to do it on a cube for you all, okay? We don't need that color anymore. And let's use something like, we all love it, the old Dynamesh, right? So just so you guys can visually see something here as well, I'm going to turn off the floor just so we're only looking at the cube again. So you can see we just got regular topology here, right? And then this is going to have the ability not only be able to do something like this, and then let's do something like that, right? And even that. Let's just completely different strokes. They're not even the same, right? And then let's go ahead and interpolate that. But let's keep it at 5 and interpolate. And you can see the stroke actually slowly adjusts. And this is also why it's also called to interpolate, because it's looking at that first stroke, which was straight. And now it's looking at that stroke as more of elongated, you know, brush stroke, right? So it's only looking at 2. Again, it's whatever you do. And if I'm doing something like this, right, then you interpolate, it's going to slowly, gradually change. And then you have adjustment through here. They're equal distant apart from each other by default, okay? Now, if we're looking back again and insert mesh brushes, okay, so let's go back to that model kit. Yes. Okay, and let's go, let's go small this time, too big, right? And then I'm going to interpolate. All right, so when I do this, you're going to see now, because it's an insert mesh brush, this is different properties kicking into play. This is not a sculptural brush, in essence, where I'm sculpting across the surface and making surface change. I'm literally adding new topology, right? So I'm inserting something new. So you're going to see the gaps that you're getting here kind of vary, right? And this is because obviously when it's drawing out, we're telling it to go from small to big. So then ZBrush, when it's drawing out the next 5, it's got to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So the gap is actually equidistant. The thing is, though, the mesh is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? This is very different. So there's an option here for us all. So let's go backwards, okay? And in here, there is a closer, I'm going to turn on this magnifier again for you. Right? See this little dot right here? So I'm going to turn it from a closed dot to an open dot. Open season now. Here we go. Right? So now let's do the same thing. I'm going to do a little one here, and then let's do a big one there. Okay? And then now let's interpolate those 5. So you can see now we're getting a different result here with that open dot approach. So now what this is doing, it's actually looking at size as it's to each one and readjusting the gap now based upon the actual size of each one of these next ones that are getting laid out for you. Okay. So you do have options here of when the strokes are being applied for you on the surface, or in this case, also with an insert mesh brush, you're going to be able to have it do instant, or you're going to have it interpolate based upon the actual size of the model, right? So this is just opening up a lot of other things. I know for me as a person that likes to do hard surface, again, this is almost everything in this thing. Well, pretty much everything. Obviously, everything was done in this version, and there's a lot of new stuff that's done in this. And again, I'm going to be showing this whole thing, how I made it on Friday, and then also my other colleague, Mr. Daisuke, will also be streaming on Thursday. So besides this stream, people, you're going to also have the stream on Thursday and a stream on Friday to also go through this. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to kick it to Michael so that he can start showing you guys some more items for you all. So let's hand it over to Michael, and he's going to show you some other new features here for you all to see. Let's bring them in. Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Paul. And I did notice in the stream if it worked across curved surfaces, and it absolutely does. It takes into consideration the surface normal. So if you interpolate it, I guess I can just do it on this one. Let me go into solo mode real quick here. Let me say BI brush insert. We'll just grab a part here, and we'll do a flathead screw. And give me a second here. Let's go down here. Sorry. Delete lower. So if I want to insert on here, and I do a flathead, and if I want to make it the same size, to be consistent, you can put one in here, and then so put one in here, put one in here, and then when you do your interpolate here, so we go in here to our stroke menu, and here's our interpolate. I'm just going to drop this down to like 4 or something like that, and hit interpolate. It'll look at that surface normal and drag them out. So just in case you guys are wondering, yes, it does follow that surface normal. For me, and when Paul said this was like the exploratory, oh, sorry, is this not going? I'll move slower. Well, let me zoom in here, and I'll just stop. So there you can see it working across the the normal there. But like we said, this being the exploratory ZBrush thing, I was actually, oh, shoot, hold on just a second.
Michael, hold on. They're saying your screen. They don't see your screen. Screen can't be seen. I'm seeing it on my side.
So my cam is working, but the screen isn't. Do I need to stop sharing? Let me see. Stop.
Yes. Try stop sharing and then resharing and see.
Start. Is that better?
Okay. Hold on. Let's. Us again. Okay. I see your screen.
Yeah.
Let's make.
Yeah, I just saw the chat going.
They're seeing your screen. Okay, there you go. Good.
Yay. Is it moving?
Okay, it looks like you're good. So he's moving the model. Everyone's
yes. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. So yes, again, interpolation is going to go across the surface normal. So super useful. You can see when I was using it on this robot, and like Paul was saying, very exploratory release of ZBrush. I think I had about 15 to 16 hours worth of creation time on this. It basically started with a Zizoo Bison, and then going through here, and then just creating all these pieces. You're going to see I have a bunch of hard surface pieces pulled out. So the 2 things I'm going to be showing you all, I used a ton. I would say out of the 15 or 16 hours it took to make this, I would say 8 hours of it was going up here to AdjustLast, playing around with the knife brush and the bevel brushes like that. So let me go ahead and just to kind of simplify what we're talking about, I'm going to go out of edit mode, hit Control N to clear my canvas. And I'm just going to grab just a plain old cube 3D, drag it on my canvas, go into edit mode, and then make it a polymesh 3D. So, and I'll switch this to Skin Shader 4 so you can see it. So just to kind of, again, simplify the model, just to talk about the basic techniques before we dive into doing something a little bit more, not complex or anything, just, you know, stringing together some techniques. So if I turn on X symmetry here, I like to have, and this is something I'm going to be using more, you know, as I'm doing hard surface stuff, I like to have predictable geometry. So you'll see me in here in ZRemesher a lot, where if I want to say, you know, detect edges, half, depth size down to 0, nice even quads, and then hit ZRemesh, it'll look at my geometry and give me just nice even quads. I can go through here now and I can just subdivide this up, get some geometry to work with. And now we can talk about the bevel brushes that are in ZBrush now. So if I go in here to B to bring up my brush menu, and then B again to narrow it down to just the brushes that start with B, you're going to see we have a new BevelArc and a new Bevel Flat. Super cool brushes. I can't live without them anymore. So if I go through here, and it's pretty simple to use. You click on one side of your mesh, you drag to the other side. Oops, sorry. BBA to grab the BevelArc brush. You click on one side, click on the other. And then as you brush back and forth, it's going to bevel it to an arc. And the cool thing about this is there's no real limitations to it. It's pushing the geo back to that beveled arc. So essentially, you can see I have subdivisions here, works just fine. If I delete my subdivisions, again, works just fine. Now you're also going to see as I'm going back and forth, I'm having to brush a lot. What I would suggest doing when you're using these brushes, just tap S on your keyboard and make your draw size really big, or you can go up here, top of your screen, draw size really big. And then as you go back and forth, you can just very quickly, you know, you can do a little bevel, just click here to here, little bevel, big bevel, click way in here, and then you get a big bevel here. Also works with Dynamesh. So if I go through here and say, you know what, you just Dynamesh this mesh, no problem. Works with Sculptors Pro, go in here to Sculptors Pro, no problem. It's updating your mesh. And again, just pushing that geometry. Sculptors Pro is creating new geometry on the fly, obviously. But again, not a whole lot of limitations to this brush. Also works with Symmetry. So if I go up here and I say, you know what, let's get rid of the stroke menu here, go in here to transform so you can see our symmetry options. I can have X and Y symmetry turned on. So again, click and drag and pull these across, no problem. So very, very quick. And, you know, around the sides up here if you want to. Again, it's just pulling that geometry to a bevel. Now, there is another thing to just kind of be aware of, and that is I'm going to go down here to turn my polyframe on, go down here to subdivision level 1, and I'm just going to mark these corner edges here. And then as I mark those with my Z modeler brush, I can tap Alt and just change the color here. And so again, another thing we need to keep in mind is go ahead and turn on polyframe, turn off line here. So BBA, BevelArc. And then down here under our brush modifiers, you can see I have a brush modifier that's set to 50. So not only is it going across here and then beveling back and forth, and you know, picking and choosing your first and start points. So even if you have the same start points, this brush modifier is going to modify that arc radius. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off X symmetry temporarily. So with it set at 50, I can click here on the green and then here on the green. And again, we're just going to pull this straight back. And again, it's going to give us a nice bevel. If I crank this up to 100 and then go down here, and again, nice big brush size, go across here, and then give ourselves that 100 radius. You're going to see, even though we're clicking in the same spots, it's going to give us a broader radius. We drop this down to 25. And again, we go green to green. Here's 25. And if we drop it down even lower, like to say 10, it's going to just keep shrinking that radius. So just two things to keep in mind is where you click on your mesh. And then there we go. So 50, 100, 10, 25. And in fact, if you go down here to -100, or any negative number probably, if you click and drag and then go back and forth, it's going to bevel flat. And in fact, if we go BBF or click bevel flat here, that's literally the BevelArc brush with the brush modifier set to 100. So you can just go through here really quickly and bevel these in. And just to kind of reiterate too, because I'm going to go ahead and call this out because I use this a lot. If I turn X symmetry back on and I'm going through here and I'm beveling, sometimes it's useful to just grab a quick polygroup. Go ahead and make this a little more obvious here. W, There we go. Go through here and I'm beveling flat, right? So you can go in here and, you can adjust last, but also underneath polygroups, you can also group changed points. So if I group those changed points, it's going to pop those into groups for me. Control Shift Tap. And in fact, I can go back here and I can even under masking, I can say mask changed points. Now, if I do it with a closed circle, basically these points in here changed a lot, like 100%. And then these points out here changed like 1%. So it's going to give you that gradient. You can boost the mask and it'll boost those 1%ers up to 100%. But if you want to skip that part and just have that happen a little bit faster, you have this open circle here. So while you're going through and making changes to your model, and you're like, you know what, give me a mask on that last thing I did, no problem, mask change points. And just like Paul showed, you can go back in your history and mask through, multiple changes or polygroup through multiple changes. And at this point, you can hit Control W. Do polygroup, you can duplicate this off, start making armor panels off of here. World is your oyster. So having said all of that, let's make something just real quick here. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know what, let's turn off. So we have our symmetry on. We'll turn off Y symmetry. We'll go back to BBA and make sure that I put my brush modifier. We'll set that back to 50, that default. And so now we can go through here. It's like, I want to bevel this inwards a little bit. And then let's say I want to mask an area. So Control Alt and then mask through here. And let's say I want to, let's mask here and maybe mask here. And then BBF to go back here to bevel flat. And you can just go through here and like bevel flat and it'll respect masking. So you can just push these in here just like this. And then even, we can tap to invert that mask. We can go to BBA, or we don't even need to mask actually. If I unmask here and we do BevelArc, I can literally just go back and forth across here. It'll jump over across those gaps and bevel those for me as well. So really, really easy to kind of go through here, mask some stuff, go to BBF or flat, and then, go across here and, bevel flat in here, invert this mask. Maybe we'll go across here and we'll keep this part masked. We'll put a little stand over there. So really quickly, you can go through here and start generating some cool hard surface ideas. And you don't need to worry about, oh, do I need to go in here and, put in my edge loops and all this stuff. You're just finding the shape. You're finding your idea first. And again, it can go really fast. And while you're doing that, keep in mind, you can always go back in here and, multiple, let's go back here, Control Tap to store that point in history. Then all those change points you did, you can go through here and you can just polygroup your change points. And then you can pop those pieces out or mask them or whatever you need to do to keep kind of playing with what you have. So let's go back here to our big old bison. So again, we got some samples in here. And if I turn off everything except for the structure, let's open this up here. You're going to see I use this a ton when I was making these kind of these big iron chassis pieces. Very quickly going in here, figuring out what shape I wanted, and then doing a little bit of lightweighting. So essentially, you want it to be reinforced structure, but you don't necessarily need it to be a 10,000 pound piece of metal sitting in there. So we're going to do one of these real quick using what we've learned. So if I turn on polyframe line here and we go into transparency mode, I'm going to go ahead and get my shape. Now, in order to get my shape, let's talk about this thing. And this is another one of those additions that's can't live without anymore. So if I hold down Control Shift, we're in the modifier brushes. And if I go in here, you're going to see we have two new brushes, Knife Curve and Knife Lasso. Now, before I get to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about Trim Curve, just for the veteran ZBrush users. We'll turn on line here so we can kind of see what it's doing. So basically, if we use Trim Curve and we just kind of slice across our mesh, actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn off that point in history there. It slices through and it fills a hole, which works great if you're just doing a straight line. However, if you want to go through here and I guess I should probably talk about this. Curve stroke, Control Shift, drag out a curve. You can use space bar to move it around. You can Alt Tap twice to go through here and do a jagged stroke. And then you can Alt Tap once to kind of do a bendy stroke. When you do this, it slices through, but then the fill hole gives you that kind of result. No longer. So instead of trim, we're going to use Knife Curve. And now if we go through here and we do our little stair step pattern, it slices through and gives us beautiful geometry. So if I want to duplicate this off and isolate this, and let's go in here and say, use our Z modeler brush. And let me just do a quick, delete hidden. And sorry, I'm using my custom menu, but you guys know how to get to that stuff. We'll do another delete hidden. real quick and say, okay, and then we'll go in here and say Q mesh, polygroup all, pull out a little armor panel. And again, I'm just using that native, let's turn all this stuff off here. There we go. Using that native geometry that it generated, and I'm able to pop off a panel, no problem. And again, if I want to interpolate, rivets down there, again, not a problem. So super powerful, and even better, it works in symmetry as well. So if I go through here and I'm using knife curve and I'm on the one side and I alt tap here and I go down and alt tap, no problem. Go to the back, go to the front, and tap through here. And again, you can do bendy curve. And if we change the stroke from knife curve to knife lasso, this uses a lasso stroke. So again, Control Shift, go through here and mask lasso out. Again, it works cross symmetry here. Oops, if I have X symmetry turned on, there we go. And again, you can just go straight across here, start dividing this up. And in fact, skip ahead just a little bit, knife curve with brush radius, super useful for doing like armor plating. You go in, you make the big armor shape and you go in and slice it up. Well, let's get to it. So let's go ahead and start using BevelArc and Bevel Curve and the knife brushes to go ahead. And again, if we turn on our structure here and open it up, there we go. Here, there we go. So we're going to be kind of setting a little lightweighted area in here just really quickly. So again, using our knife curve brush, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start slicing in our shape. And because I know that we have the BevelArc brushes, I can go ahead and leave these corners nice and sharp, because I know I can immediately go in here and say, you know what, let's go into solo mode. Let's go in here to BBA from a BevelArc brush. We'll go in here and just go back and forth. BevelArc, BevelArc, no problem. So I can start dialing in exactly that outside shape that I want really quickly, really easily, no problemo. And in fact, you can even do like these interior edges here. You can hold down Alt and it'll pull these points up to an arc here. So we can again go through here, hold down Alt, and it'll pull those points out. And if you ever need to, if you're ever going through here and you're doing BevelArc, let me do a really big brush here, and it's starting to kind of dig into another area, you can just mask. So Control Alt mask this, and then we can go through here and again just kind of BevelArc safely within that mask and won't touch your other points. So we've got our basic shape here. Again, let's bevel this real quick. And now I need to, if I go out of solo mode, you're going to see, well, it's still a 10,000 pound piece of metal. We still need to slice out a little bit more. We're going to give it some structure. We're going to lightweight it just a little bit more here. And you know what? Let's bevel these two. Now that I have BevelArc, I'm beveling literally everything I do. So we have this, and then I'm going to go through here with my knife brush, and we're going to go to the top, and I'm just going to use this to kind of go through, and from the top, we'll go ahead and slice through a little bit here, and then from the front, we'll go ahead and chop out a little bit, and again, it's still structural. It's still going to support the structure that we need, but it'll just make that a little bit lighter weight, but still strong. Now, again, if I go out of solo mode here, you're going to see we've lightweighted the interior structure, but we still have some more lightweighting on the outside. So what I can do is I can duplicate this off here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to grab this little piece off of here, and I'm going to switch temporarily over to select rectangle. So geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, grab a little piece of this, Control Shift A, delete hidden. That's visibility grow all, because I just want to pull that one side panel off of here. And like I mentioned before, I'm a sucker for clean geometry, especially when I'm doing just hard surface stuff. So if I got something like this, zero measure half, depth size down to 0, and just give me some nice clean geo. And for you all, geometry, zero measure right here. But I would suggest, you use a lot of stuff, put in a custom menu, makes your life easier, funner. So we're going to go ahead and turn everything else off. We'll just look at these two things here. So go through here with my Z modeler brush, BZM, Q mesh, polygroup all. Pull out a little thickness, and in fact, let's switch over here to extrude. I'm just going to push in, hold down Shift, and just kind of push in that border around this edge here. And really what I'm interested in is just this border edge. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and we're just going to isolate just that purple border. Again, delete hidden, and then I'm going to go back in here and say close. Concave hole should work just fine. You could actually do a close holes operation on that, but here it is. Now, again, I want nice predictable geometry. Well, zero measure to the rescue. Same, keep smooth groups down to 0. They're already smooth. Brand new geometry. Now, how do I want to go start slicing this into the little lightweighted shapes? Because right now I can set this to a Boolean. So here's subtractive, live Boolean, W, push it into my mesh, and it's live, so I can, you know, move, scale, rotate, adjust this thing as needed on the fly. But again, it's just there's no structure in there. There's weak points in here. We want to beef up those weak points. So what I'm going to do is go through here with my knife brush, and we already know the basics. So I can go through here and I can, like, you know, carve through, alt tap twice and knife this piece out, right? Well, again, Control Shift, spacebar, brush radius, game changer for me. If I go through here and I say Control Shift, alt tap twice and let go, it'll cut out a piece of it. And this is useful too if you just need to like duplicate this off and just pull out a little panel piece. Done. However, if you hold down Control Shift, tap Alt twice, and then before you let go, hold down Alt, it cuts through here. So very quickly, I can go through here and again, slice through and hold down Alt, and it'll just go through and, you know, cut through all of these. And even better, so I'm doing lightweighting. And if I go through, I mean, lightweighting isn't really done like this, like all the way through. It kind of goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? The coolest thing about this brush, one of the coolest things, for me anyways, is if I stop in between here and hold down Alt, it'll stop. It's going to ignore that other polygon island. Doesn't care about it. So I can go through here very quickly, and again, just kind of set this in place, hold down Alt, and then, you know, kind of cut through here, hold down Alt, go through here, opposite angle, hold down Alt. Sorry, I got butterfingers here. And now I've got my new shapes. So again, I can go through here, and now I'm cutting in these types of shapes. Still not good enough for me though, because again, I'm a sucker for nice geometry. Again, ZBrush to the rescue. I already had, every time I do a slice, it gives me a new polygroup, right? So I can just go in here and say, keep groups, move groups down to 0, same, give me new geometry, no problemo. So now at least I have nice geometry. But I'll tell you the real reason why I did that is when I push this in, these edges are too sharp for me. Well, if I go down here to crease, you know, there's a bevel width down here. And if I go in here to solo mode and turn on polyframe, if I had creases on here, it would bevel all my creases. But I don't have creases, I have polygroup borders. Well, if I hold down Control with this, and then I do bevel width, it's going to put a bevel in between my polygroup borders. So now what I can do is I can go through here and I can soften up these polygroup borders. Again, when I hold down Control, soften those up. And then just a quick geometry modify topology mirror and weld, get it on the other side. Go ahead and turn my structure on here. Sorry. I got a lot of 186 subtools in here. Again, a lot of playing around to get these shapes. But again, so fun and easy to explore with these types of tools that, you know, the 16 hours put into this thing, again, 8 hours of that was just me playing around with this new stuff. So that was my knife and bevel experience that, again, I just do entire models now, just basically using those two things.
All right. That's there's been a lot of excitement going on in the chat. So I'm going to take it back. All right. You're good on that experience. And I'm going to add some stuff too, I think. All right. So let's show my screen again here. And I want to show you a couple other things as well. With this brush that, again, stuff that maybe I'm going to combine what I've also already shown in here. So let's first make sure my audio is good. All right. And let's make sure for me, my model looks fine and it's rotating. We're double checking here since we're swapping back and forth a lot. Okay. All right. So what Michael was doing, right, this bevel flat, even for me too, that, again, that truck I pulled up, you know, I was using these two bevel brushes a lot. Now, what's going to be nice, again, like Michael said, if you go to a really big brush size, right, I'm clicking where I want to start the bevel and where I want to end the bevel. And those green lines are telling you where the beginning and end, right? So this is giving me that bevel. Now, if we take the idea of what I've already showed, watch this, right? Like I said, adjust it, bam, right? You have so much freedom here with this little adjust slider. It's actually crazy how much I found different ways to use this. Like, look, I'm completely changing the silhouette of this, right? Just from that one bevel, right? And I'm just now using the AdjustLast to try some different things out. So this is what I'm talking about, like the tweaking, right? Part of this version. And this goes right into discovery. I didn't know maybe I would like this and have that nice line right there and plane change, right? Until I did this. So this is working for me. The other thing I really want to also call out for this brush is this kind of example where I've done a bevel and then I've sculpted over it. You guys will have the ability, right, to actually go do that and get rid of on this plane now where there's some sculptural change, get rid of it. I don't want it there. I want that to be staying as a flat plane. Okay. So that is going to be giving me, again, I'm going to be saying a lot in this one. This is going to be really a version for me to be in discovering and tweaking things. So with that said, Michael already touched on one of them. Okay. But I want to expand on that. I'm going to grab a nice little brush here that I made, and I want to put a tattoo on her arm, right? So I want to go here, and I'll get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. Get rid of it, right? So now I can just draw out a nice little tattoo and say, yes, dragon, why not? Okay, so Michael already went into the masking and showed you guys this mask change points, right? So I can click on this, and so not only was it going to mask your sculptural change, it's actually even masking, in this case, the Polypaint, right? And then it's not just that, okay? So what I'm going to do is watch this. I'm going to now take the mask that's on this arm, and I'm going to say flip it by Posable Symmetry. And what I've done is actually move the mask over to the other arm, as you guys can see. And notice the mask is actually got a gradient based upon the Polypaint intensity. So I'm going to show you more here, but I want you to think what I just did there. I've drawn out with Polypaint, and looking at the intensity, I made a mask from it, but not just that, it's got a gradient change here based upon that intensity. So for me, I have also now the ability, let's just on this arm now, right? Let's go back and maybe let's inverse it, right? So you got this, and now I go to something like deformation, and then we throw a little bit of an inflate, maybe just a little touch of inflate, and now we clear that mask. You see, we got a little sculptural change in there as well. So this ability now for us as artists, okay, is being able to, and I'm using the artist term for me loosely, okay? Stop laughing. Stop it. Okay. All right. So when you make a sculpt here, right? So I'm now painting and sculpting at the same time, in essence, right? I'm doing material, color, and sculptural change. It's all happening at the same time. Okay. But let's pick a different brush here. Okay, I'm going to do standard. Let's throw a nice little alpha on it just so you guys will be able to see. And I'm not going to do any paint or coloring change. I just want you guys to see this stroke. Okay, and I want you to have an understanding of when you click this mask change points, you can see that it's got a nice little gradient in here, right? So the highest peak, in this case sculpturally, right, is giving me the most mask, and then it's slowly having a gradient down this stroke, right? So and this is going to lead me to other things in here. Okay, so we've added a couple other things here in the masking, which I'm sure all you can see already, right? So there's now also a thing called BoostMask and DiluteMask. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear this one. All right, and let's put another stroke. Let's pump it up a little bit right here. Yes, I'm making strokes, right? And let's not forget, okay, if you start making multiple strokes here like this, you can go back in your undo history with this as well. Make a marker by holding the control key, tap there, right? Tap, and go back to where now there's the 3 strokes. Now tell mask points to work, and bam. So again, it's not even just only about the last stroke you made. It's about any strokes you've made, just using the undo history to do this. And then you can see that there's a nice gradient on these strokes on the arm. And now what boost is going to allow me to do, I can boost my mask, and you can see, you guys might think it's looking like a growing. It's not growing. Okay. This is very different than grow mask. This boost mask is actually only looking at the vertex points that are in essence had a masking of like a 1% mask rate to a 99% mask rate. So then you have a rate where there's absolutely no mask, right? 0 masking. And then you have parts where it's like at 100% mask. This boost button is only adjusting the points between the 1 and the 99. So in essence, as I keep clicking this boost, all the ones that are like 99%, 98% masked, they are becoming 100% masked. So in essence, I'm boosting the mask. And then here's the key thing. It's not going to grow past the sculptural point that I made. So any point that I've sculpted on here, those are the only vertex points that's going to be affected with this boost mask. And then of course, there's the one next to it now, which is a dilute mask, which is now doing the opposite, right? So here we'll go, let's make another stroke down here so you guys can see that as well. So we'll make another nice stroke here. Again, mask by change, all of them get it, right? Because remember, I've got my undo marker now there, okay? And then now I say, all right, let's dilute it. And you can see now that's going the opposite direction. So what it's actually doing is unmasking now some of the points that were involved in this stroke. And again, this is very key. This is very different than the two above. The two above aren't messing with, they're looking at the vertex points in the surrounding area of the mask, okay? And then they're doing different things with that. This is literally only looking at the points that were changed on the surface in this case. And in the beginning one, the paint. That's it. That's all it's looking at. It's not looking at anything else, right? So obviously, like Michael said, a popular thing for us is to make a new polygroup with these, right? So this also has this ability to do undo history, right? We've already looked, the AdjustLast has the undo history, right? And then I want to reiterate, we'll go back to this model, right? So as you guys, I've made this, I'm now like, oh, this, I've changed my mind, okay? I need new polygroups for this, but I've already sculpted on this now. I made my changes on here, right? So you can see now there's a red marker. This is a visual cue to you, and this is in the current version of ZBrush, that, hey, I've got an undo marker on another subtool somewhere, okay? And this would even work for projects. Like I can load a project, save an undo, and load a completely different project, and the undos would still remember the last subtool that was in the other project, okay? So this time I'm gonna, you know what, this was great, but you know what I wanna do now is I'm like, let's go backwards a little bit to say this point, and now I'm gonna hold control, and now so you can see this marker is gray again, and then now I'm gonna come back here, and guess what we can do as well, come back to our poly grouping and just say, just group change points, and now all the last points that I adjusted and changed are now all getting a polygroup, right? So again, it's about, I've already done something and I'm trying to tweak it and adjust it and do some different things with it, right? And then from this point on, okay, any sculptural element you do, okay, when you go ahead and you click on this, you can see I keep getting all these new polygroups happening, right? So it opens up some really nice power for us here. And I can get rid of the undo marker, right? And then say, okay, from this point on, any stroke I do, give me a new polygroup, right? And then if you don't want a new polygroup as you're moving on, again, you can make a stroke, hold the shift key, and then click, and then you're actually going to get every stroke I do now, when I hold the shift key, is going to give me the exact same polygroup. And in fact, that's what this little dot will do by default. So if you open your dot, okay, then you're going to have that ability to do this, right? Okay, so thinking about this, let's go back to her, okay? Let's go back to her in here, right? So we've got now abilities to mess with our mask, okay? I'm gonna start doing some things on her face. So let's go back into this masking stuff, okay? So I can, if I want to, right? We're gonna go back to, let's grab my little brush that I made here for her, and let's put, yeah, I don't know why she's gonna have a face tattoo, okay? All right, so this is here, and now that I've drawn this again, right, I can mask change points, right? And now it's finding that. You guys now again, and the keyword here, it's posable. So this is actually a mask is adjusted. And you can notice in her eye, one eye is open more than the other eye. And we're actually adjusting that mask based upon that change difference that's happening in there, right? So not only that, okay, but you can also mirror it and in essence copy the mask. So now I actually have the mask on both sides. So not only can I flip it, but I can also mirror it, right? So in essence, copying it over here. And if we turn off the Polypaint, just so you guys can see that. So you can see both the masks, and I'll inverse it so it's even better. So you see both masks are there. So you have ability to make a mask, swap it back and forth, or even just mirror it over. And again, the keyword here is posable. This mesh is already posed in a posed state, right? So again, I've done a bunch of stuff, and now I want to add things and tweak things here. And this is opening up this workflow, okay? So it becomes really nice to be able to do this. So it doesn't end there though, okay? So I'm going to, let's just clear our mask. Let's put the paint back on. So I'm gonna hold the shift key and click that little brush icon. So thinking about this, where we're having now the ability to flip a mask, mask change points, mirroring posable symmetry. Our next thought was, well, as an artist, right, we're going to want to be doing mask changing, polygroup changing, right? How about I want to paint on this, i.e. like I just did, right? I undid the paint. I want to do something here. And now I want the paint on the other side, okay? So that's right. In Polypaint, you also have the options of flipping it and also mirroring it, right? So you can mirror it to the other side if you want, or you can flip it. So I can flip it and now it's on the other side. I can say flip it back and then put it here again. And you can see even on the shoulder, the paint is flipping, right? Because we're looking at the posable mesh itself and looking, oh, you want to flip from one side to the other. And that's all we're just flipping the paint for you, right? And then again, she's moved. So that's why we're calling this flip by posable symmetry. So of course, this will also work on a mesh of your T-pose still, an asymmetrical pose, but we wanted to show you an example of using this with something that was posed. Now, what I'm going to do now is let's combine these two features a little bit here, okay? So that you guys completely understand everything. Let's go undo, let's go back, okay? And I'm going to redraw this again. Yes, just a little one right there, okay? And then now I'm going to do mask change points, okay? I know now I can flip it, right? So I'm going to flip my posable, right, symmetry. So the mask is now on the other side. And then now if I flip it, here's the thing. I've got a gradient here now, right? So what I want is a different type of mask, because what's happening with the Polypaint, okay, when you guys are painting, right? So I'm going to do a little bit different stroke in here. Let's grab the paintbrush. So I'm going to do something visually so you guys can really see this. Let's grab, let's say this blue. Okay. And let's say I just want to put a nice little blue mark here, right? And now I want that to be mirrored over, right? So if I come here to the painting and I mirror it over, you'll see that the paint, right? We're losing the intensity here because right now ZBrush is seeing her entire body and it's seeing, okay, there's a left and right side, and the left and right side have paint on them. So what you're getting now is an average between the left and right side. Right? Obviously, this is not what I would want if I'm really going to want it to be able to flip my painting from one side to another side. So I want to combine now. Watch, I want to combine these features. So I'm going to undo this. Let's go back. And again, we'll draw another stroke just so you guys are visually seeing this again. Okay. And this time, okay, the mask change points. Okay. This is going to go back to this boosting ability. I'm going to open this circle right here. Okay, again, that open circle now, when I do mask change points, it's doing completely different masks. So what it's doing now, it's not doing a gradient mask anymore. It's only doing full-fledged 100% mask, right? So that last stroke I made of that paint, every point that has had a change here is getting 100% masked. Okay, and why this is important to me in this scenario, because then I can say, all right, well, let's go ahead and flip it and then inverse it. So now the only part of this mesh that is unmasked is that part that I made, right? Above her eyebrow. So why this is important, because now if I combine and I say mirror the paint, right? I'm going to get the same exact brush stroke on the other side. And mind you, it's a posable mesh, so there is some changing here going on. So I'm combining these features now together, right? Knowing that our ability to mirroring is going to average your points. So if to do that, you guys can use masking, right? So obviously doing something like this in the version that you guys currently have, I would have done something like this, right? And then we probably would have done, I'm going to do a mask, right? And then do something like that and then inverse it. But you can see you're getting a lot of unmasked parts. So, but now you can just say, I'm going to flip it, right? And then now I've only got that area. And then now I say, again, mirroring it. And now we're getting, see, I even got a little bit of the dragon coming through there now too. Okay. So I'm combining the features. So it's important to understand this when you're going to use that painting option, that you're going to want to use masking in essence to tell ZBrush what part of the vertex paint-wise do you not want to take in account? And in this scenario, I only want the part that I literally just painted to be in the situation. Or let's not forget, with the mask change points, you guys still have the undo history. So even if you make multiple strokes here and multiple painting, you're going to have the ability to go mask all those off and then flip them and inverse it and do whatever you want, right? So this is pretty awesome and pretty great way to go, again, tweaking and adjusting stuff that already exists to us, right? So I'm going to kick it back to Michael now and show you guys, we still got more. There's still more. So we're going to kick it back to Michael, and he's going to show you guys even some more items for y'all.
Cool. Thank you, Paul. And, you know, like I mentioned before, you know, the exploration and going back to your undo history, and I showed a little bit on the hard surface, and even the stuff Paul showed, I'm going to be showing you guys just some more examples of, you know, how I might use that in other scenarios, you know, from organic to hard surface and back. A lot of really, really useful stuff here. So one of them is the ability to go from one stage to another, or, you know, having it's basically a state. You have one state and then you have another state for any subtool here. So to kind of set this scene, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the floor here. I'm going to go to the front, and you're going to see I have this object set right in the middle of my scene. Here's my x-axis, my y-axis, bottom up. So now if I turn on X symmetry in my keyboard, just by tapping X, or if I go over here to transform, and we have activate symmetry is basically being toggled on when I hit the X key. So now what I can do, so I can go through here and I can move across X symmetry. In fact, I can do X and Y symmetry. However, since this isn't in the world center, it's kind of on its own center. I got to go up here to L sim. That's the local symmetry. So it's going to look at the local symmetry of this bounding box for this individual object. And now I can do X, Y, and Z symmetry even if I wanted to. Even cooler, if I go over here, remember our Y-axis, up and down, I can say Y symmetry with a radial count, and now I can have radial symmetry on this object. However, really, I want this object to go back here behind the eyeball. You know, basically why I have this out here is I want to be able to put rivets around the eyeball, but eventually it's going to need to go back behind that eyeball. So that's where geometry stager comes into play. You're going to see there's a home stage, target stage, and switch stage in here. So I'm going to go ahead and call this my home stage. Go ahead and set it. And then I'm going to go ahead and move. Let's go ahead and turn our floor off here. Move this into place. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. You're going to see I'm moving, and I'm scaling, and I'm rotating. None of these things matter. It's not a big deal. All I got to do is go and get this thing into place so that I can start working back and forth between my two, basically my two save states for the object here. So here we got it kind of dialed into place here. There we go. So now I can work on them in both stages. So essentially, this is going to be my target stage. And now if I hit switch stage, it'll switch between my home and my target stage. And in fact, I don't necessarily like going over here and hitting buttons. You know, I like hotkeys for things. So instead of just having to go over here and hit this button, I'm going to hold down Control-Alt. And again, you can assign a hotkey to almost anything in ZBrush, like my custom menu hotkey, changing my brushes, all hotkeys. So I'm going to hold down Control-Alt. Click the switch stage button in the top. It's going to say, you know, press any key combination. Let's just do Control-Alt-2. And now I can very quickly switch between start and end stages here. So if I go into my Z modeler brush, so BZM or a hotkey, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say Bevel, edge loop complete. We'll put a little bevel in here. I'll send it back over. And now I've got a little bevel on the back, and I can also model in context. So actually, let me, so you can see, there it is. I can go ahead and model in context here. So if I go through here and say bevel, I can say, okay, how's this bevel going to look around the eyeball? Yeah, I want it about here. Cool. Now let's throw it back in here. And just like the BevelArc brushes, there's not a ton of limitations to this. So if I go in here and I say crease my Paul Gaboury's there, I can hit go in here to dynamic, and it's going to go ahead and, you know, give me a dynamic mesh. So if I send a dynamic mesh over, no problem. If I want to apply these, so I have real subdivision history, and I go through here and I make a modeling change, send it over, no problem. If I want to go through here and I want to say Dynamesh this result, it's going to create up a resolution there. So we got a Dynamesh mesh now. Again, we can make any changes we want, send it back over, no problem. So in this instance, again, I want to put rivets around here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on tap X for my activate symmetry here. And let's go ahead and go to my standard brush. I'm going to clone this off. I don't want to mess with my standard brush. I like to have a standard brush available, but I'm going to go ahead and say, make this drag rect, and we'll throw in an alpha. Now, in the old days, if I wanted to go through here and like put in, oops, focal shift down to -100 so I can get the full effect of that alpha. In the old days, what I would have to do is go in here and be like, oh, shoot, it's not heavy enough. Okay, let's go up here to Z intensity. Okay, that's right. Oh, shoot, I wanted it to punch in, not punch out. Okay, let's undo that. Let's do Alt. No longer. I can just drag out a stroke. So, and then I can go right up here to adjust last. It's like, I want that to push in. I want to push in a little more, maybe a little bit less. No problem, super fast and easy. On top of this, I can go in here and be like, oh, I'm going to push this one out. You know what, maybe I want to push out a little more, or change my mind, I want to push this back in. And just like before, if we go down here to our polygroups and I say, you know, group change points, let's go ahead and turn on our polygroups here. All my change points are grouped. And in this instance, if we go up here to masking, if I do a mask change point, it's going to mask those interior edges. But again, these ones change the most, and then it kind of fades out to changing the least. This is where I would use, instead of boost, I would use dilute. I'm going to dilute it back to just these points in here that changed. And then I can hit Control W, make it a polygroup, pop that off, make it into new geometry, any number of things you can do with that. And the whole time I'm doing this, just to keep reiterating, I can send this back over at any point. And masking too. So if I go through here and I say, let's go to mask lasso, I say, yeah, mask this over, and then send it back over, and maybe want to do a deformation inflate. I mean, I should use the real menu, right? Deformation inflate, you know, no problem. Send it over, and then again, Control Alt 2, send it back and forth. So again, super useful, super easy. Send masks over, and even BI brush insert, go in here too. I guess we'll grab some industrial parts here, and I can go through and put in a little IMM brush. Now, I'm going to hit W because I want to go through here and be like, hey, you know what, let's kind of move this around. However, in 2021.7, instead of having to go up to, you know, this top menu and kind of move them back and forth to change these out, I can use my arrow keys. So if I want to switch these to the Phillips head screwdriver or screw, no problem. Just use your left and right arrow keys, and that'll cycle through the different IMM brushes here. So again, I can just send that right back over. Mask and all, send it over, check it out, see how it works in context, and then send it back here. A little bit easier to work on. Another thing that's in the polygroup menu here, you're going to see there is a regroup visible. So if I have my symmetry on, so I'm going to hold down Control Shift. We'll go in here to select lasso. So we have a polygroup here, a polygroup here, a polygroup here. And in fact, even on these screws here, they have a bunch of different polygroups. So here's a polygroup, and then inside here is more polygroups on here. So let's say I don't mind that. I want to keep those polygroups, but I need to go ahead and regroup everything that I have on my screen. Keep the polygroups, just give me new polygroups. Go in here and say regroup visible, and you're going to see if I hold down Control Shift, we'll switch back here to select rectangle. Again, all of these, same polygroup. All of these same polygroups, they've just been regrouped. All the screws, same polygroups, no problem. And in fact, just to make this a little bit more obvious, maybe, I'll go ahead and turn off X symmetry. And let's say I just want to have this for, you know, these here. Again, regroup visible. And now the rest of the screws didn't really change. However, these ones now have same polygroup here. So all the polygroups have been regrouped. Based what was on your screen there. So, and again, it keeps your polygroups sane and how you like them, just gives you something new in case you need to have them separate from another asset. And speaking of IMM brushes, when I'm doing hard surface stuff, you can see like, okay, this is a Dynamesh. Well, I don't want to mix, I don't like to mix my Dynamesh with my hard surface sub D models. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Shift tap one of these screws, Control Shift A to visibility grow all. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'll use this menu. Go in here to Subtool, and we'll say Split Hidden. So now I have two subtools in here. And because the original mesh that I had already had the home stage and target stage set, my screws inherited that. So I can send the screws over, no problem. I can Alt tap my plate, send this on over. And if I don't want to do that for both of them, I can go up here to Subtool, and I can say Alt to Home and Alt to Target. So I can move everything from home to target. And just one more thing I want to bring up, just because it's like, I mean, believe me, this is super useful for things that are like, hey, I want to, you know, have symmetry on and then move it into place. It's also surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, it was surprising to me how useful it was just to have a different state for any number of objects. So if I have a screw here, for example, so we got geometry, home stage, and I'm like, you know what, it's just easier to work on these if they're scaled up and bigger and off to the side, or maybe they're in the way of something I'm working on over here. I can very quickly just pop those into different states. Same thing with cloth, you know? So if I'm like, okay, this is okay in context, but it's a little bit easier for me to work on this cloth out here, maybe turn towards the camera, maybe a little bit bigger so I don't lose my eyesight, and target stage and go back and forth. So if you've got a guy that's, you know, a hat needs to fit his head, but then he's also holding it in his hand, model it on his head, home stage, set it to his hand, target stage, and then you can evaluate both in context. And like, you know, for the example of this one here, if I turn on polyframe here, and we'll say, go ahead and fill this with a color and then standard brush, RGB. So if I have, oh, there we go. So if I have, you know, something I want to paint on here, and then I want to send this back over, let's say his eyeball falls off and I want to paint behind it. It's easy enough just to kind of pop that out and get it out of the way, do what I need to do, and then it's back into place. So I just wanted to call that out specifically, as if you've got screws you need to see or have available, or a latch that needs to change state position really quickly, really easily just to, you know, set that hotkey, set home and target, and you're good to go.
Okay, nice. Well done. A lot of excitement for that stager. Thanks, Michael. So we'll kick it back to me. We still have a couple more things to show. And someone asked to see this, and so I'll just do it on my side. First thing, someone saying, hey, I want to look at a smooth version of your model, not faceted, but still have the low polygon version. There's actually two ways to do that, right? You can just turn dynamic subdiv, right? And then you're going to look at the smooth version of the model, but it's not actually the smooth version of the model. And again, that's in your geometry dynamic subdiv, right? So someone had brought that up. That's one way to do it, obviously, right? And then you can control how much smoothing do you actually want with their smooth subdivision. And of course, another way, which is old school way, is in the transform. If you turn off quick mode, right? And then down here in the display properties, there's actually a smoothing slider, and you can see the mesh is smoothing. So someone asked about that. So there's your two ways to do that within ZBrush. I'm going to go back into quick mode though. All right. And then someone asked to see what he was doing again with the IMM. So I'm just going to grab another IMM here. And the model kit's my favorite. So I'm just going to throw something on here. And so what Michael was highlighting is in ZBrush, when you turn on the Gizmo mode, this is now giving you the ability, since the sphere is now masked out and I've got this mesh sitting here, we can just click up here, right? And then we'll swap through the pieces, right? As you're cycling through. In this version, you are now going to be able to use just the left arrow key and then the right arrow key. So you don't even have to go up to your IMM viewer or wherever you're positioning, because it can be positioned in 4 different parts of ZBrush. And again, if you hold down the arrow, see, it cycles through fast. So you don't have to sit there and go click, 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 right? If you have something, you go, we're going for a ride, right? So you can definitely do all of this as well. So someone had asked to see that again. So hopefully that helps, right? So there you go. And this is a very nice thing, because I personally also use this quite a bit, having the ability to use a gizmo to swap through things like this, right? So it's very, very handy. Now, a couple other little things that I want to share with you all is this has been a request for you all, is the palette menus. You can now use your mouse wheel. So I'm using my mouse wheel now. I don't know if you can even hear it, to scroll up and down the palettes. So you're going to be able to do this now. You can use that. I personally don't use a mouse in ZBrush because we're pressure sensitive, but you have that as well. Something else that I do want to highlight for us, okay, is in the preferences. Okay, there is some additions that we've done in here. One of the big ones is, some of you will probably hear, so I'm going to go back to this model, okay, so that we can see with a model with obviously multiple subtools. Import palette is now changed. So this has been a request by a lot of you. So the options now that used to live here in the export menu, which was subtool by subtool by subtool basis, we have now made it a global setting for you all. Okay. So in the preferences, in the import, export, all the options now live here. So this is a request from you guys as a user base, right? Because we actually did a bunch of stuff in here as well. We actually added some things to multi-map exporter. We actually did a bunch of other little things under the hood that were requests by you guys as well, right? And they're just the little things that gets us going further into our project. So now a global setting. So whatever options, these are the defaults that you're looking at now. And so whatever options you want for this, I know a lot of you come to me and say, hey, I want group off. You guys can now do this. And now all subtools, when they get exported, will have that group option off. So when you guys are going to get this version, you're going to have this ability. So this will even store with your config. So that's how you're going to also be able to save it. So if you go set those options of those import, export options to what you want, okay, you'll be able to store it now in your version of ZBrush, okay? So these are some of the big additions, right, that we have. To recap again, we've got a lot of stuff in the stroke palette. We've got new interpolation and we got an AdjustLast, right? We've added a lot of stuff in the masking for this, having the ability to flip, change mask points. We have new options here in our polygrouping through here, right? We've got a new regroup visible, group changed points, right? And then now obviously in the painting as well, we've got these new options. And then I know a lot of us are very excited about the new brushes. You got a BevelArc and Bevel flat. And then like Michael was doing, you have the knife curve and the knife lasso, right? So there's a lot of things happening for this point update. So I know a lot of you have been saying and asking when this is going to become available to you, which is obviously now you all want to start working and playing on this, right? And getting the way Michael and I have. Before I tell you guys when it's become available, I want to remind you, you know, if some of you jumped in late or things like that, we're doing 2 more streams this week as a company. So my colleague Daisuke will be doing a stream on Thursday, right? So Kyle's throwing that up right now at that time. So again, that's going to be Thursday at 2:30 LA time, PD time. And then I'm going to be remaking this that you're looking at on Friday, this coming Friday, the 27th at 11 a.m. And so I'm going to go through and just remake this piece with you guys and show you how I used all the features to get to this point. All right. For the drum roll part, when is this version going to be available? So we are going to drop this version to you guys tomorrow. That's right, tomorrow. We are going to be giving you guys, this is a free upgrade to all existing users. For those of you that have had ZBrush for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, how long you've been using, you're getting all this as a free upgrade again. So we're going on almost 22 years now. I think we're at 22 now upgrades. So you guys are going to get your hands on this already tomorrow. I'm August 25th. PD, we're in the area. So it's going to be that. And of course, this is a great time for those of you who are watching that maybe bought ZBrush yet. Buy ZBrush. Even if you buy ZBrush right now today, you're going to get, of course, you're also getting upgraded tomorrow if you want to. So you can go buy ZBrush right now if you want, and then still get this version tomorrow, right? So we're excited to see what we'll do with this and all these features that we're going to update, mind you, right? So we've been working over here trying to get as many different features and looking at what you guys have wanted. We're really excited about this. So I'm excited to see all of you. Please be posting, throwing things up online and communicating with us on our social medias, our Discord, and of course on ZBrush Central. You want to be sharing some stuff. So let's bring Michael back in and we'll say our final parting words for this stream. So Michael.
It was good. And like you said, I'm super psyched to see what everybody does with this, because I was like, I have to make something cool. And while I was trying to make something cool, I was having too much fun making cool little things and playing around with the new stuff. They're just fun to play with. And that's what I like most about ZBrush is while I'm making something, I have too much fun using the tools. It's set up for artists. It's set up for good, fun, like creation workflows. So like even getting something done was fun. And rarely is that the case in production where I'm like, okay, I got to make something. Here we go. In ZBrush, it's always like, no, I'm going to make something and I'm going to have a blast doing it. So yeah, the whole time I spent on that Buffalo was like I was on vacation. I'm not even saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was, I think recording time was like 16 hours. And again, half of that was me just messing around, figuring out like, oh, what does it need to be this or that, or AdjustLast or chop this up and see what it looks like with the knife tool.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's the same thing for me for the model I just showed, that truck that I've been building. It was a lot of just discovering and figuring things out and having fun with the brushes and the new additions that we're making here in this point update. So
absolutely.
I enjoy the discovery part of process, right, of making the art. And then, I'm a big 3D printer guy. So I like file too and have it in hand. That's a lot of fun.
You might confuse me as a 3D printer guy, but I haven't actually printed anything on those in the background. One day.
Got any cubic. Yeah.
Those are just props. Those are just paperweights right now.
They're there for a visual. They're a visual.
Yeah, I needed something cool in the background, so I bought 3D printers. Am I a cool guy now?
Nice. Perfect. All right. Well, I really want to, again, and then those that are asking, this is going to be available for you guys to rewatch on our YouTube, of course, and it's going to be available on Twitch, our Twitch channel as well. So some of you are on the Twitch, some of you are on YouTube. You can go rewatch this again if you want to, but let's not forget, not only will myself and Daisuke, but obviously a lot of our streamers like Michael and many other of them already have this version, been practicing with this version. So they're going to start also showing the new version in some of their upcoming streams as well. So, but that won't be until, again, we're dropping this to you guys 2021.7 tomorrow, right? So keep an eye on our social medias, keep an eye on our ZBrush Central. You're going to find out when it drops. We will obviously be making those announcement through those channels. So Michael, thanks for being a part of this. It was fun.
Absolutely.
Going through this with you.
No, so much fun.
Little back and forth.
Yeah,
it's always a blast. And Michael's one of the best ZBrush instructors people. So he's got an amazing YouTube channel as well, where he's always posting. I don't know how Michael has the time. So, but he's always making stuff and making content and putting it up there. So it's another great location for you guys all to learn from, right? So
very, very kind, Paul.
Yes. Well, Michael, anything else that you'd like to add before we call this a done stream?
No, like I said, I'm excited to hop on ZBrush Central and see what everybody starts making. That's all I'm looking forward to.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a lot of fun. We'll see you guys tomorrow, I'm sure. Looking forward to see what you make, ZBrush. I'm Paul Gaboury with Pixologic, and I'm out.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.